Hey everyone! Ready for a deep dive into something that sounds kind of basic but gets real weird real fast?
Yeah, I think this one's going to be a fun one.
We're talking about no-brainers. You know, those things we do without even thinking.
Right, like it's so obvious it shouldn't even require any brain power.
Exactly. But here's the thing. Are there really things we do that don't use our brains at all?
Oh, now we're getting into it.
This deep dive is all about that question. And let me tell you, I got the idea from this Vsauce video, and the stuff he talks about is wild.
Oh, yeah. What kind of stuff?
We're talking headless chickens, cockroaches that just refuse to die, even frog legs that, get this, dance.
Okay, now you've got my attention.
It's crazy how something we use as a metaphor all the time, no-brainer, can actually have some pretty literal examples out there in nature.
Yeah, you don't really think about it until you start breaking it down.
So to kick things off, let's talk about the most famous example, Mike the headless chicken.
Oh, yeah, Mike. I remember hearing about it. Wasn't he around back in the 40s?
Back in 1945, this farmer, Lloyd Olson, was trying to get dinner ready, and, well, things took an unexpected turn.
Let me guess. The chicken didn't exactly cooperate.
Not exactly. So Lloyd's trying to decapitate Mike, the usual process, but somehow a little bit of Mike's brainstem stayed intact.
And the brainstem's a pretty important part of the brain, right?
Super important. It controls some of those basic but vital functions, like breathing and heartbeat. And in Mike's case, enough of it was left to keep him going.
Wait, seriously, how long are we talking?
18 months. Can you believe that?
No way. A headless chicken living for over a year. That's insane.
I know, and it wasn't just some twitching thing. He was walking around, even trying to peck for food. People were amazed.
Makes you wonder what life even means, right?
Right. And Mike's story really makes you think about how we define simple actions. Even things that seem automatic, they still need at least some brain involvement. But if we want to go even deeper into this no-brainer world, we got to look at creatures that are, well, built a little differently.
Okay, I'm intrigued. What kind of creatures are we talking about?
Get ready for it. Cockroaches.
Ugh, cockroaches.
I
Oh.
know, not the most glamorous example, but trust me on this.
Okay, I'm listening. What's so special about cockroaches?
They're like the ultimate survivors.
Right.
And it all comes down to how their nervous systems are wired. See, we humans, we have the centralized nervous system with all the nerves going to and from the brain, right?
Right, so our brains are kind of like the command center for everything.
Exactly. But cockroaches, they've got these clusters of nerves called ganglia spread out all over their bodies.
So it's more like a decentralized system, kind of like the internet.
That's a great analogy. And that's why a cockroach can lose its head and keep on going for weeks. Like it's no big deal.
Weeks without a head. That's both impressive and terrifying.
Totally. But how do they even function without a head?
Well, for one thing, they don't breathe through their heads like we do. They have these little holes called spiracles along their bodies that they use to get oxygen.
So they can still move, react, even without that central brain control.
Pretty much. It's like each part of their body has a little bit of independence.
Okay, that is both fascinating and nightmare-inducing. But back to us humans, I'm guessing losing our heads is not recommended for trying to live that no-brainer life.
Yeah, not so much. We're kind of dependent on our brains for, well, pretty much everything.
True. But hold on, we do have those reflexes, right? Those super fast reactions that happen before our brains even have time to figure out what's going on.
Right, like when you touch something hot and you pull your hand back instantly. That's not your brain making that decision, it's your spinal cord.
So our spinal cord can make decisions without the brain. That's kind of cool, actually.
It is. It's all about survival. Those split-second reactions can be the difference between getting hurt or staying safe. And there are other things we do that don't involve constant conscious brain power, too.
Like what?
Well, take breathing, for example. We don't have to think about every inhale and exhale, do we?
That's true.
It does.
Kind of happens.
Exactly. Our brainstem handles that in the background, kind of like what was still working for Mike the chicken, remember?
Oh, yeah, that's right. So there are like levels to this whole no-brainer thing. Reflexes are that super fast localized version. And then you've got things like breathing, which our brainstem just takes care of without us having to micromanage it.
It's like different parts of our nervous system have different levels of autonomy.
But you want to know where things get really weird?
Oh, I'm always up for weird. Lay it on me.
What happens after death?
Whoa. Okay, now we're getting into some deep territory.
Yeah.
What happens after we die? Do parts of us keep going?
That's the question, isn't it? Because even when the brain is gone, individual cells can still hold on to some energy. Specifically, a molecule called ATP.
Hold on, so parts of us are still active even
Oh,
after we're.
it's kind of mind-blowing, right? And there's this group called Backyard Brains that did these experiments with insect legs.
Insect legs. What did they do?
They took the legs off of insects, and even when the legs were totally detached, they would still twitch and respond to stimuli. And guess why?
Because of that leftover ATP.
You got it. The cells in those legs still had enough energy to react, even without a brain calling the shots.
So they're not alive, but they're not totally inactive either. Kind of like zombie legs.
Uh-huh, that's a good way to put it. It's this strange in-between state, for sure. And it's not just insect legs. Even human limbs can have muscle twitches after death. There's actually this crazy example using frog legs and salt.
Frog legs and salt. What does that do?
Oh, you're gonna love this. They basically make the frog legs dance. I'm serious.
Wait, dancing frog legs. Okay, you have to tell me more about this. So,
Yeah.
dancing frog legs, huh? It sounds more like a Halloween trick than actual science.
Right, but it's all about chemistry. See, when you add salt to a frog leg, the sodium ions kind of mess with the electrical charge inside the muscle cells.
Okay, I'm following so far.
And this triggers a contraction, making the legs twitch or, dance.
So it's similar to how our nerves send signals to our muscles, but it's happening without a brain to control it.
Exactly. Pretty wild.
Super wild. So even in death, there's still some activity going on at the cellular level. It really
Yeah.
makes you rethink those no-brainers we were talking about.
Right, it's like there are all these processes happening that we don't even realize. And some of them can keep going for a surprisingly long time after,
After death, yeah. It's pretty amazing, actually. Some cells are just incredibly resilient.
Like what kind of cells are we talking about?
Well, skin cells, for example, they can keep going for a while.
Seriously? Skin cells, what makes them so tough?
Well, think about it. They're on the outer layer of our body, so they're used to a harsher environment.
That's true. They're constantly exposed to the elements and all that.
Right,
Yeah.
and they don't rely on a constant blood supply for nutrients in the same way that other cells do. They can absorb what they need directly through their membrane.
Is there a name for that process?
Yeah, it's called osmosis. Basically, they're taking in nutrients directly from their surroundings.
So they're like the survivalists of the cellular world. Self-sufficient even after the main system shuts down.
Exactly. And because of that, skin cells can actually be harvested from a body even up to 24 hours after death.
You're kidding. What do they use them for?
All sorts of things. Skin grafts, for example. It's really a testament to how much life persists, even at the microscopic level.
Wow. That's both amazing and kind of creepy. Are there any other parts of us that just keep on trucking after we're gone?
You might be surprised to learn that digestion is another one.
Digestion. Seriously. I thought that was all controlled by the brain.
Well, it's not entirely dependent on the brain. We tend to think of digestion as this, coordinated effort controlled from headquarters, but there's a lot happening behind the scenes, and a lot of the heavy lifting is actually done by, well,
By what? Don't leave me hanging.
let's just say our gut bacteria deserve a lot of credit.
Gut bacteria? You mean those trillions of little creatures living in our intestines?
The very same. They're the ones breaking down our food and, and guess what? They don't exactly clock out when our brain does.
Wait, so you're saying that even after we die, we're still digesting?
In a way, yes. Those bacteria keep right on working, breaking things down, producing waste. So in a somewhat humorous way, you can say that part of pooping is a no-brainer.
Oh my gosh. I never thought I'd find humor in post-mortem digestion, but here we are. This is all so fascinating, though. It makes you wonder, if our cells can act on their own, does that mean they're not really part of us?
That's a deep question. It gets to the core of what defines our identity. Is it just the activity of our brain, or is there something more? We have all these cells doing their thing, often without any conscious input from us. It's like, what does it even mean to be us?
Right. And it makes you wonder if a true no-brainer is even possible for beings like us who are aware, who make choices. Is there always some level of intention involved, even if it's way deep down?
It seems like there's a spectrum of no-brainers.
Yeah, I see what you mean.
Like, reflexes are on one end, super fast, totally unconscious. Then you've got things like breathing, which is regulated by our brainstem, but we don't have to micromanage it. And then there's all this cellular activity that persists even after death. That's like a whole other level of autonomy.
It's kind of humbling, isn't it?
Yeah.
We started with this simple idea of actions without thought, and now we're questioning what it means to be alive and who we are beyond our brains.
That's the beauty of a deep dive, right? It's not about finding easy answers. It's about exploring the complexity and finding new ways to look at things we take for granted.
So, After all this, what does it mean for something to be a no-brainer? Where do we even go from here?
Well, maybe instead of trying to find actions completely devoid of thought, we should flip the script. Think about it. The fact that we can think, feel, make choices, that's pretty amazing in itself, isn't it?
Okay, I like where you're going with this. Maybe the ultimate yes-brainer is simply existing, being conscious, experiencing life in all its weird and wonderful complexity.
Exactly. Instead of focusing on what we do without thinking, we should celebrate our ability to think at all, to be aware, to interact with the world around us. That's what really makes us who we are.
So we've gone from headless chickens to zombie frog legs and ended up pondering the meaning of life.
And I wouldn't have it any other way. That's what makes these topics so fascinating to explore. We started with no-brainers, and we discovered a whole universe of unexpected insights.
This deep dive has been quite the journey, and we hope it's given you plenty to think about, too. What do you consider a no-brainer? We'd love to hear your thoughts, so what do you say? Ready to shift our perspective a little and think of simply existing, experiencing life as the ultimate yes-brainer.
It really is a powerful way to look at things. We spend all this time trying to find things we do without thinking, but maybe the truly amazing thing is that we can think at all.
Right, instead of trying to switch our brains off, we should be marveling at the fact that they're switched on.
Exactly. Our ability to be aware, to make choices, to learn and grow, that's what makes being human so incredible. And it all goes back to those no-brainer actions we were talking about. They're all part of this bigger picture.
It's like even those simple, basic actions, even the ones happening at the cellular level, they're all contributing to this whole experience of being alive.
It's like a symphony, all these different parts working together, from the tiniest cell to those complex processes in the brain. We might not be aware of every single note, but it all comes together to create something amazing.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, let's leave our listeners with a little challenge. Don't get so hung up on what you do without thinking. Take a moment to appreciate that you can think.
Exactly. Embrace your yes-brainer, that amazing ability to experience life, to ask questions, to explore, to connect with the world. That's where the real magic is.
We started with headless chickens and dancing frog legs, and somehow we ended up talking about the meaning of life.
That's the best part of these deep dives, right?
Yeah.
You never know where you'll end up. We started with no-brainers, and look at all these incredible things we discovered along the way.
It's been an amazing journey, and we hope you've enjoyed it as much as we have.
And remember, there's always more to explore, more to ponder. Keep those yes-brainers engaged, and never stop looking at the world with a sense of wonder.
This has been The Deep Dive, signing off.